Bushido is the famous samurai ethic. It comes from the Japanese word bushi, meaning samurai or warrior, and do, meaning way, as in way of life. It is the code which supposedly united samurai in common behavior and thought, not unlike the code of chivalry in the West, which guided the knights, themselves a sort of Western analog to samurai. Samurai and their Bushido code are popular totems in the cultural imagination. Author Chris McNabb wonders if modern audiences are so attracted to such a culturally different and temporally deceased culture because of the manner in which the samurai represent via the modern looking glass, a way to transcend the anxiety and minutiae of modern daily life, through a unifying philosophy of spirituality and discipline, alongside a fearless martial spirit in the face of our own mortality. Okay, that is a dense quote, which we could discuss at length, but Mr. McNabb is onto something. Samurai pop up in movies, comics, TV shows, and video games, and they influence everything from the American Western film to the Jedi in Star Wars. However, McNabb and other scholars cast varying degrees of doubt on the common vision of Bushido. In the popular mind, we think Bushido is about honor above all, evoking the phrase, death before dishonor. Further, we think it is about loyalty to superiors and a set of moral principles. Maybe we think it's about Zen, or disregard for personal safety, or performing glorious deeds in battle, and even a preoccupation with death. But is this accurate? Scholars point to a book published in the early 1900s named Bushido, the Soul of Japan by Nitobe Inazo, which set out to record and share the samurai ethic with the world. Inazo acknowledges that prior to his book, Bushido codes were never formally agreed upon or codified. Some texts existed, but none considered definitive. As such, McNabb and other authors argue that our culture's understanding of Bushido largely derives from this one work, and any misconceptions about it stem from its author. One piece of pop culture that comes under attack for its portrayal of samurai and Bushido is The Last Samurai. It romanticizes Japanese history and the reality of the samurai ethic, drawing upon myths and misconceptions about Bushido. Or does it? In this video, I want to explain Bushido, describe how The Last Samurai gets it right, and by extension, why I think the film is profoundly moving. Author Anthony Cummins pushes back on the skeptics a bit when he writes that Bushido existed as a concept long before Inazo published his classic book on the subject. Where Cummins clarifies the difference is that during the heyday of the samurai, in the absence of any definitive text on Bushido, it existed as more of a nebulous idea. Bushido would have been thought of as, quote, following the ethics of samurai life, even if those ethics changed with the times, which meant that as long as the actions of a samurai fell inside the ethics of his time and his actions served his lord, he was following Bushido.
I am surprised to learn that the word samurai means to serve, and that Katsumoto believes his rebellion to be in the service of the emperor.
He goes on to explain that modern audiences romanticize what Western chivalry or samurai Bushido meant because both concern the concept of honor, but all honor really means is doing what is considered right. This varies by culture and time and place, so modern audiences may superimpose their image of morality onto a culture and assume their concept of honor matches up. Now, during the roughly 8 centuries of samurai rule, samurai became less of a warrior class than an administrative one, as the country underwent prolonged periods of peace and development, where war was not required, but diligent government and economic work was. By the time of the Meiji Restoration and Samurai Rebellion, which is very loosely portrayed in The Last Samurai, those in rebellion would have had little to no combat experience, but they would have had an academic and cultural appreciation for their samurai heritage. And what do cultures do to their heritage? They romanticize it. This might be a nice sleight of hand on my part, but this is actually a documented samurai reality. Author Michael Wirt explains that not only do we look back on samurai through rose-tinted glasses, but the samurai look back on earlier samurai the same way. They look back to their forebears for inspiration on everything from no plays, to weapons, armor, philosophy and ethics, even assumed names. He also notes that not just samurai, but also commoners in Tokugawa-era Japan helped create and take part in warrior culture and samurai ideals. Looking at the American obsession with SEAL Team 6 since the Bin Laden raid, it's easy to imagine the common people taking this and running with it. So yes, the Bushido Code is as much myth as history, but the samurai themselves partook of the myth. It's worth noting that samurai in the Meiji era, portrayed in The Last Samurai, would be further removed from the samurai who fought in the Warring States era of Japanese history than we are now from the Meiji. And are modern cultures the only ones who idealize the past? Of course not. See, as a moviegoer, I look at Algren and the samurai with wonder and admiration. Is it so hard to imagine the samurai of that time looking at their forebears the same way? Rolling back the historical timeline, where would that end? Is there a point in history at which contemporaries would stop looking backwards to the good old days? I don't think so. I submit that throughout the ages, people have always done this. People look to the past for ideals and principles that no age ever lived up to. People tend to look on history fondly and take inspiration for how to act in their present time from how they thought or maybe wished people used to act, whether the inspiration is true or not.
If you're going to be the sheriff, that's the way to do it. You could actually face your enemy in those days.
Bushido is myth and history rolled into one. It's real not because any age of samurai ever fully lived up to it, but because every generation lionized it and held it up as the ideal, and therefore strove to emulate it. And the emulating makes it real. Plus, because the ethics of societies evolve over time, our concept of Bushido is informed by the past as well as the present, creating an ultimate code of ethics and a way of life that is profound and moving. Anthony Cummins writes, quote, "The samurai were in constant violent employment. The Warring States period alone helps us to understand the samurai's spiritual preoccupation with matters of death and dying. It was a true dark ages, with no certainty and rule through the sword," unquote. The samurai in the film are far removed from this brutal, bloody era of Japanese history, and therefore not nearly as battle-hardened. But the samurai preoccupation with death existed before and persisted after the Warring States period.
And his troopers died for it.
I think this is a very good death,
Well, maybe you can have one just like it someday.
if it is my destiny.
Cummins continues, quote, "Death was always forefront in a samurai's mind. They meditated about their own death, imagined it happening, wrote poetry about it. It helped cope with reality, helped them face their fears. It was coded into their Zen Buddhist religious philosophy," unquote. Samurai had to be willing to die, make peace with it, look forward to it. Dying, or indifference toward the possibility of dying, was the ultimate proof of one's loyalty and devotion, one's nobility. Death and loyalty were intertwined. Samurai served regional lords called daimyo. Not only was death in service of one's daimyo the ultimate expression of loyalty to them, but loyalty in life was paramount. This was a turbulent era full of opportunistic betrayal, power grabs, and role reversals. If a samurai had ambitions of public office or lordship, then by definition, he would be reluctant to sacrifice his life in service of the daimyo. Ambitions to rise above one's station or supplant one's lord were highly frowned upon. Instead, samurai considered it honorable to be content with one's lot in life, to serve the daimyo to the utmost capacity, up to and including death in his service.
If the Emperor wishes my death, he has but to ask.
This is why Bushido is partly understood as doing whatever one's lord asked of him. Loyalty was prized because of how fragile power structures were, and a samurai's calling may put them face to face with death, so it was important to come to terms with it. Samurai also considered coming to terms with death vital to being a successful warrior. Cummins remarks, quote, "In this world, if the samurai does not embrace his ultimate mortal destiny and lose the dependency that comes from the fear of death, then he will be unable to fight with clarity or vigor." Miyamoto Musashi put it a different way. "To win any battle, you must fight as if you are already dead." So why is Katsumoto constantly talking about how he'd like to die?
What happened to the warriors at Thermopylae?
Dead to the last man.
To achieve or maintain the highest degree of honor in life, he must endure a noble death. For a samurai, suffering a glorious death namely any death in service to his daimyo or aligned with his principles, was a death worthy of honor. To them, it was not a thing to be dreaded, but a thing to anticipate, welcome, and for which to be thankful when it came.
I killed her husband. It was a good death.
This brings us to the topic of seppuku, or ritual suicide. As Anthony Cummins notes in Samurai and Ninja, the point of seppuku was to take control of one's own death, instead of letting someone else kill oneself, and or to atone for some mistake for which no other recourse is sufficient. It is a final way of redeeming oneself and restoring honor for a failure or defeat, balancing the cosmic scale in one final act, which we see in the Japanese general in the beginning and Katsumoto at the end.
Country do not kill?
They don't cut the heads off defeated kneeling men.
General Hasegawa asked me to help him end his life. A samurai cannot stand the shame of defeat. I was honored to cut off his head.
Defeat in battle was considered shameful, since a defeated samurai failed his lord and presumably put him in serious jeopardy, which is why it was considered proper to at least commit seppuku to redeem this final failure to one's daimyo, family, or land. Rolling all this together, we get the progression of
I will die by the sword. My all. For my enemies.
We now know this is an accurate reflection of Bushido, as either option was an honorable and acceptable death for a samurai.
Then let it be your enemies. Together, we will make the Emperor hear you.
This is the emotional turning point of the film, and it's powerful. Don't give up yet. You've got fight in you. Make them hear you. You're doing this because of principle, because of what you believe in, because of your integrity and honor. Don't back down now. It's easy to see why this is attractive to us.
The way of the samurai is not necessary anymore.
Necessary. What could be more necessary?
Don't miss it. The Last Samurai is directly engaging with the idea that the old ways shall not be replaced by the new, that we must continue to live by the values we've traditionally held, and if necessary, die for them. And when the rebels seem beaten, we get,
He's defeated! He must accept his shame!
to hell with that, Katsumoto says. I'm not ashamed of this defeat. I would be ashamed of surrender. I will die gloriously for what I believe in, and my honor will be intact.
You have your honor again. Let me die with mine.
The circle is complete. Katsumoto can die content that he made his stand and lived with honor in every breath. This inspires the Japanese troops, Algren, the Emperor, and just maybe, us. Katsumoto and his men have reminded the Japanese people of their legacy, the legacy they inherit from the samurai of honor and dignity and conviction. The Emperor remembers the same and charts a new course for his country. Finally, the Emperor has heard Katsumoto.
Tell me how he died.
I will tell you how he lived.